So this is the fire and ice speech. That was the fire. So I've been charged to tell you a little bit about Zionism Russian community, and I'm going to do this through the spectrum of the emotion that you've heard, and partially this frustration that you will hear from the Russian-speaking Jews about the lack of unity, sort of this a little bit of vagueness in the Zionist conversation in the American Jewish community. There's really no consistency or coherency about what it means to be a Zionist. And this is very dichotomous, very different from what happens in the Russian-speaking community, where everybody pretty much speaks the same language, whether or not they are in the right or on the left, whether they're the elderly generation or they're born in the U.S., in the Russian-speaking families. And so I want to just give you a little sort of socioeconomic history, very briefly, so that to help you understand why this might be happening and what to expect. So the Russian-speaking immigration has been called the most successful, economically speaking, immigration in the American history, both from how rapidly people advanced, how educated they were, and there's reason to believe this comment. Now, as people succeeded economically, they naturally looked to grow culturally and to expand culturally within and outside the community, and a lot of that was done through the prism of support to the state of Israel. Because the Russian-speaking Jews, we don't have, and this is the footprint of 70 years of communism, we don't really have a closeness of association to synagogues, to Jewish community organizations, to schools. None of that was available in the Soviet Union. So the natural bond is to Israel and to Israel alone, particularly since studies were done way back, found that about 8 out of 10 Russian-speaking Jews had close personal connection to Israel, whether they visited personally or they had close families. So Israel to us is not a film. It is a real place. It's a place where our families live and that we treasure personally, and so that makes a great deal of difference. Now, as the Let My People Go movement became so successful and hundreds of thousands of people came to this country, probably close to about 700,000 or so, American Jews found that the people who came over were not what they expected. These were not the Jews that the Americans were looking to see necessarily. These were Jews that had no religious experience. They had very little connection to synagogues, schools, community associations, right? They were frankly a little different in their personal and political standpoint, right? There are a lot of statistics on voting trends of American Jewry, and the statistics are exactly reversed in terms of party affiliations at the national level and the Russian-speaking Jewry. So these were different Jews. And although there was a lot of Zionism, intrinsic Zionism in the community, this did not necessarily engender this community to the mainstream American Jewish community for obvious reasons. And so as the organizations like ours began to build, began to grow, we all encountered a lot of pushback. And the pushback came in many forms, but there was plenty of that, and everyone among the leadership will tell you many a story. And so the real issue is that as the community was trying to grow, which path would they take? Would they give up and they settle into their sort of the economic ways, or would they pursue the idea of Zionism, the idea of community building, the idea of Jewish identity? And the clear choice was to pursue Jewish identity, except it was done outside the American Jewish mainstream to a great degree. And so over the decades, and it's been decades now since the early 70s, the Russian-speaking Jews really established their own path to power, their own path to the American political mainstream, certainly to Israel mainstream. And so as we sit here together, and the real subject is unity and how to progress to the goal of support of Israel together, the question is, how do we find this path together? As the Russian-speaking Jews have grown in strength, we are now in position to really sit down together with the American Jewish leadership, to sit down as partners, not as a client versus benefactor attitude that was present early on as the immigrants were coming in. And the good news that we have to share with you is that we do feel these winds of change blowing. We do see, certainly on the part of the new ASEAN leadership, certainly on the part of many organizations in the US, we do see greater acceptance of what the Russian-speaking Jews have to bring to the table. And we have a lot to bring. The amount of enthusiasm, the amount of energy, the numbers of young people who are devoted to Judaism and the State of Israel is mind-blowing. Percentage-wise, so far in excess of average American young person that it really defies imagination. So this is a tremendous asset that our community can and should bring to the table. And we are glad that the seats at the table are now being filled. So thank you.